Thank you for listening to the Bladder Battle Podcast special series, Flarey Tales. This series gives those living with bladder conditions such as interstitial cystitis a chance to share their personal journey. This series is also intended to bring awareness and create conversation around the illness. This podcast, however, is not intended to be a medical alternative for physician care, nor to treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. So please consult with your physician for professional medical advice. Today, I'm excited to have IC and chronic UTI warrior Jazzy on the show to share her health journey with us, but also to talk about her passion behind developing UTI stings. So Jazzy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to learn about your company and, of course, learn a little bit more about your story and kind of how you got to creating UTI stings. Obviously, having the experience and going through chronic UTIs, I think it helps to create an entire company around what you've been going through and what you're passionate about changing. So very exciting. I'm very interested to hear more about that. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our audience just a little bit about you? What do you do for a living aside from creating your company, UTI Stings, and a little bit about how your IC or UTI, chronic UTIs started?
Okay.
Loaded question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so I've had... I've basically kind of started with just regular UTIs maybe about 10 years ago. I think when I was I don't know if I was 16 or 18, but yeah, I do remember the first time I had it though, it was when I was having work experience in the city, and it was so annoying because I was working at my auntie's cafe, and I had my first UTI and I was so freaked out, I didn't know what it was. But yeah, and she actually, I remember now, she actually said oh, you just have to drink heaps of water and it will go away. And I was just oh, okay, cool. But I couldn't, I was so freaked out. I hid in the bathroom for an hour.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I've had, it started off as UTIs and I'm not sure if I completely dealt with it on the spot. So fast forward 10 years of that, and I think it kind of became interstitial cystitis, or at least that's what I was diagnosed with after seeing lots of urologists and gynos and physiotherapists, and after I checked my pelvic floor, and I also did a couple of cystoscopies and ultrasounds. So then I found that I had cysts on my ovaries, and I had 2 ureters on one side and then 1 ureter on the other. That was a tube that connects from the kidney to the bladder. But apart from that, they were oh, your bladder lining looks okay. You don't have Hunner's ulcers or anything. But still, it was just really the symptoms were getting worse and worse. And I think from having maybe too many antibiotics, or maybe not the right antibiotic, I kind of built, my body became resistant. So yeah, it sounds like a common story with a lot of people. They've either not dealt with it properly or not been able to get antibiotics because their urine samples are clear. So there's, those issues I find are quite common. And I guess it kind of, it really affected my relationships and my mental health, and it gives you that kind of anxiety, which I think, you almost feel relieved when you get the results back and you have a UTI. You're oh, thank God, it's E. coli, I can kill this with antibiotics. And then, when it comes back clear, you get really confused and you're is it in my head? Because doctors just kind of not dismiss you, but some do, but they're always so busy. You get a 15-minute time slot, and it's really quite a mission for me to say, oh, this is how it started, and I think it's this, and I've done heaps of research and I think it's this, and then they're just kind of here, take the script for antibiotics, drink cranberry juice, and off you go.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not enough time to go through all of your symptoms either. I always take a piece of paper with me and I have everything listed, because otherwise I feel I kind of get railroaded and I'm I don't remember what I was going to say. And you only talk about maybe one symptom when you have 10.
Exactly. Yeah. And you try and list it, but then you'll say, oh, I've done this, I've tried Ural, cranberry. I mean, in Australia, we have like stuff for symptom relief, similar to baking soda, I guess, but in a packet. And it takes off the sting, but it doesn't actually deal with the issue. It just kind of takes off the symptoms. So heaps of people are just sculling this like powder that you put in water that fizzes up. And it doesn't really like kill it. It just kind of, minimizes the symptoms. But yeah, I'm just not sure like if people know, like the right amount of antibiotics. So some people like me was also taking it too much. So I was traveling a lot for my work. I've always worked at like fashion agencies and I travel. So domestically I'd travel like all around Australia every month. And then I'd go to LA like once or twice a year. So I don't know, it just ended up being like I'd get anxiety even just catching the flights and like, worrying when the bathroom is or if the flight's delayed or, and I had all my fashion samples with me. So I'd be like, oh, I just can't leave them outside the door like type thing. So I had like all my suitcases with me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it definitely affected like the way I like my, I guess, anxiety levels when I was traveling, and then obviously around intimacy. I mean, to be honest, at the beginning, it wasn't triggered by intimacy, but towards the end, I think I was just like so fearful of what would happen. Until I discovered like coconut oil, I actually found that helped me a lot, which is so weird, but I've been reading up.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Have you heard that? It's like it has antibacterial properties or antimicrobial properties. I don't know. Apparently it's good for you.
Yeah, I've had a few people on the show tell me about that. I haven't tried it, but I've definitely heard that it can be really helpful, especially with sex, because sex can be really painful. Even though this is really affecting our bladder, I do think a lot of us also maybe temporarily or chronically suffer from like vulvodynia, and we get a lot of like vaginal pain, and it just all connects down there.
Absolutely. It's like if it's not painful from doing the act, it might be after, and like you empty your bladder and you're like, oh, that burns. Or even even the next day when you think, oh, now I've got a full-blown UTI. So yeah, it actually did kind of help me, because it's like soothing and relaxing, and it smells good, but then it's also I don't know, maybe less friction or something, and it doesn't have any chemicals in it. But yes, sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, all good.
So after all this, having it for 10 years and then going to the urologist, and then they're saying to me, oh, we've got to do like, also I should mention, like one of my siblings also got diagnosed with IC. So she always did the urine sample test and never got like bacteria. So she kind of like always had the IC, whereas mine definitely started out as UTIs first and then became IC. And then she probably thought I was copying her, but I swear I wasn't.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're related and you're dealing with it in a different scope, because again, like everyone, it either I think starts with chronic UTIs or it doesn't, and it's just this chronic like inflammation. But it's like, where did it come from if you didn't struggle with chronic UTIs? And that's kind of like what I dealt with. Is I had a few, maybe like a handful of UTIs my whole life, but it wasn't until I got older that I started like having these like I call them fake UTIs.
Yes.
Like they were trying to be UTIs and they weren't. So
oh my God.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, I called them fake UTIs as well, because I was like, it feels exactly like one. And I think over time, it took me 10 years, but over time I could slowly feel like a UTI pain versus a IC like inflammation, and like either from what I've eaten or drunk, or it was interesting. You can kind of feel the difference. Or sometimes because I used to take raw garlic just recently, but now I feel like maybe it's causing me some like inflammation of the urethra. I don't know. It's weird. Like you kind of have to, sometimes I feel like I'm my own doctor, because I didn't have much like finding like one doctor that helped me along the way. Like in different stages of my journey, I had like different doctors and different advice. So any doctor that kind of said like, oh, we just need to like cut this out and cauterize your bladder lining, I was a bit freaked out. But because I was under general anesthetic for some of these cystoscopies, I was like, yeah, let's just do it. If there's something unusual, just like burn it. So, but it's quite scary, like, because I just thought, you know, I'm paying so much money to go to the hospital to get these procedures done, but then, you know, if it wasn't dealt with, then I probably wouldn't go back and do it again. Like my sister got like Botox on her urinary tract and in the bladder. Apparently that was meant to help like numb the nerves, but I don't think it helped at all. And we have a few other liquid things that can go inside. I feel like it's quite invasive and would be painful for the recovery. And I'm a bit scared of catheters. So there's like a whole list of things. I'm like, anything that sounds too invasive, I kind of avoid that.
Same.
Yeah. And I mean, I was lucky at the beginning that antibiotics were working, but I think once if I was traveling for work and I knew I've got a trip coming up or a wedding, I would just quickly go to the shops and carry it on me. And it became like I was just keeping it just so that I could take antibiotics when I felt anything. So in a way, it kind of became like a suppressant. And then I would rely on it. And then if I took it, like doctors would still give it to me, but if I, took it too mmany times, it just doesn't work as well. So then you need like 3 courses of antibiotics or 4, which is really, really bad for you. Anyways.
And then different ones as well, because it's like, for me, like sometimes I would get Bactrim and then that wouldn't work. So then I would get Cipro and then they would give me Macrobid. And I mean, I've tried them all, but I usually found that like Cipro was the one that mostly took care of it.
Oh, wow.
But again, I didn't really have UTIs. So it was really just that I was taking that inflammation down, or at least that's how I understand it.
Yes. Yeah.
So from like a mental health standpoint, relying on antibiotics when you're not really sure if you have a UTI or if you do, like how did that affect you, having to know that like you needed to carry that around with you while you were trying to work, travel, do life? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, it was so stressful because I'm a very bubbly, like passionate person. I'm very like positive. Like people had no idea. Like I actually became like, I guess, a little bit depressed as well, because I was like, there was a lot of social anxiety and people would never pick it. Like I was just, life of the party type thing. And actually, luckily, I could still drink alcohol. It was more like if I had lemon, cranberry or orange juice, then I'd be in pain, but I was still able to drink alcohol, which is really weird. But also drinking alcohol with antibiotics is not a very safe mix, so I wouldn't recommend it. No. But it actually, I eventually became like a little bit depressed, and I didn't want to admit it until like I broke up with my partner, and then I was really depressed. So we were together for like 8 years or something. So it was quite a long journey. Yeah. And then like the next couple of people that I dated on and off, they would have just seen me at my worst, like losing lots of sleep and staying on the toilet thinking that I had to stay there because I just couldn't get any relief. And I'd be like, cramping, fever, chills, back pain. And I just, it actually made me like, feel quite depressed. And then also relieved though, when it was a UTI, but then it's so much effort and it's exhausting, like going to the doctors, getting the test and then handing in the urology, and then just say I'm at the airport and I've forgotten my antibiotics. I would just get so anxious, and then I'd go to the airport and I'd be like, can I email you a script so that I can get the antibiotics? It was quite stressful. And it eventually, like when the antibiotics stopped working, that's when I realized, okay, I need to focus on like the root cause and prevention and have like a more holistic approach. And then I tried like herbal remedies. But my mental health was like quite depleted, and also my trust in like doctors here, and like, because I'd paid so much money from like traditional doctors and stuff. Like you have healthcare here in Australia. It's like Medicare, it covers like, I don't know, like a small percentage of all your procedures, or you pay like $500 to go to the hospital and then the rest they'll cover. But it's it doesn't, if you're going to book in for like a really good urologist, it kind of doesn't cover that. So I guess that's the same with even like a therapist. If you were to see someone, like the really good ones, they're not covered. So by that stage I realized like I'd kind of, if I had nothing physically wrong with my bladder, there wasn't much my urologist could do for me, even though he was really, really good. And he was understanding, like he's a family guy, but but also extremely expensive, like $350 every time I like saw him. So yeah, it kind of added up. And then once I dropped off my urine sample to the wrong pathologist, thinking that they're all free across Australia, but they're not. And so some of them, and then I got like a bill in the mail for like $80. And I was like,
oh my gosh, like what?
So I was like, oh, wasn't expecting that. Like, okay, I got to make sure I drop it off at the right place.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's very similar, over here in the States. I mean, we all have different health insurance, so it's not like Medicaid or Medicare, but it doesn't really cover a whole lot. I mean, different companies provide different insurance plans, and some are better than others. But you either pay a lot of money a month for it, like $300 a month for it, or you get it, or a company would cover it. But regardless, like it's the same thing. Like each doctor is like about $300, and it just goes to like a deductible. So for people like you and I, like we go a lot, but we probably would never reach this like crazy high deductible number of like $6,000 unless I went and got a bunch of cystoscopies done in 1 year or ended up in the ER. So for me, it's very similar. Like I just decided, well, my urologist isn't going to help me anymore. Like they can't do anything, and I'm wasting money on urinalysis that are supposed to be free, but somehow I'm still getting billed for them. So, and they're all negative. So like, what the heck? So
yeah, I think that's
similar situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get to the end and you're like, all right, cool. So I'm wasting my money. It comes back clear every time. And they're like, you look great. And I'm like, I feel worse than I ever have. So I guess it is like you're stressed because you don't know. And that's like the worst part of this condition. Like you have to keep working it out yourself because you're not ever long enough with your urologist to get there. I mean, some urologists now do recommend well, at least have labeled it interstitial cystitis. So then you can go and research more and reach out to like Facebook support groups and Google and whatever, and then you find you can connect with other people. And that's when you kind of find your little recipe. So I think that's probably like, and the other thing was when I was at work, like, sorry, I was just thinking back about, all my friends that know me now that I started this business, and they're like, oh, I remember you when I used to work with you and you were always in the toilet. Like it was just like, I was like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, that was me. Because I was like dying of pain. And I'm a workaholic. So I actually had my laptop in there and I was just sculling water with like, and then I would start shivering because it'd be so cold. And then I was like legitimately peeing blood. And then eventually one of my bosses was like, can someone get her out of there and drive her home? Like he was a really good boss, and he actually booked me in with his urologist. So yeah, it was just, I wouldn't have kept going down that path of seeking like advice from traditional doctors, but I was like, just one last doctor. But and then he actually said, you'll grow out of it when you turn 30. And I was like, that is not going to happen. Like, how is that possible?
What? I don't believe that. Yeah. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I wish.
Maybe. I don't know. If we knew what caused it in the first place, other than all the things that we come up with in our head, like, for me, I'm like, it was stress, just extreme stress, like not just like stress, but like being so worried about life and like being able to take care of myself, that's what I really think transpired to my body just being full of inflammation. So it affected me in other areas too, unfortunately, but the bladder was like the first one. It was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. And then it turned into like other things like celiac disease and then you start to get all of them. And I'm like, no, my God, go away.
Have you heard of the trifecta? Like everyone that has like UTI and I see they're like, we have all these bladder issues and inflammation and serious like chronic pain, and then we will like get thrush as a result of having too much antibiotics, and then we get like our monthly, period. And so people would just be like, it's just the trifecta, like we have all three in one go. And then it starts again next month and you're like, kill me. Anyway,
it's awful. It's just awful. But yeah, so with all of that going on and you experiencing all of this while you're you're in your career, you're kind of in the height of it, and it's fun and it's fast paced and everything. You're in fashion. So how did you decide, okay, I'm going to start UTI Stings? Was it based on you trying some of these different herbal and more natural remedies and found them successful, and then you were like, I want to help others? Or, you know, or was it a combination of just being frustrated with doctors? Tell me a little bit about like how you decided to develop UTI Stings.
I think that I have been like working in fashion agencies for so many years. And then just during this last lockdown, when we really couldn't sell because it was like a harder lockdown for businesses, I had just a little bit more time to think. And I guess like I looked through like all my diaries and journals and all like my journey, I guess, with my health. I've also been dating a vegan. We're now engaged. So for the last so like I'm not vegan, but I was like, you know, incorporating a lot of veggies and healthy things in my diet. But I just think like when I had time to think about it and really like realize like, what am I doing in my life? Have I helped anyone? Like, you know, I've suffered for 10 years. And I mean, when I could finally kind of send it into remission, I just know that a lot of people that have had this have healed themselves and then just not ever looked back, like not ever, don't even mention it. They don't want to talk about it because it was so traumatic. And like even like thinking about it, all my like times that I've spent the nights in the toilets and stuff. And look, I have been clear from UTI for the last 3 years, but at the beginning of lockdown, which was probably like maybe, I don't know, May this year, I think like I had a legitimate UTI and I knew it was a UTI, and I went to the doctor, did the P test. It came back clear and I was like, I just know it is. So I'll do a second P test. So I did a second P test and I was determined to do a third, but the second one came back with E. coli. So it's like I knew I had a UTI and I went to the doctors to pee in the cup too early, so it didn't pick it up or something like that. Like I just knew that that one was a UTI pain, not a cystitis pain. So anyway, so that kind of like, I like cried all night and I was in a lot of pain, and I kept my partner up all night, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to start the cycle again. Like, I think because I was just so stressed about lockdown and like, you know, jobs, career situation and just everything, like it just seemed like really stressful. So that was definitely a trigger, but I haven't had a UTI or like much cystitis for like years. So that was just a reminder, I think, on like how bad it was. And I kind of like went into a bit of a panic thinking, oh my God, I hope these antibiotics clear it and actually kill it. And, you know, it starts off the whole thing. So then I started thinking, if I could help other people to work out like, you know, like not to take the antibiotics just whenever they start to feel it or they think they've got it, and to actually go to the doctors and do the free P test, then they can you know, work out what they've got. So yeah, it was just a bit of a, I don't know, thinking about all these things, then experiencing a UTI and being back on the antibiotics, which made me really, really sick. I had to have 3 courses to get rid of it. And then I thought, like, you know, the drill. Then I went back to one of my urologists actually did give me d-mannose, because here it's practitioner only. And then I thought, what about all those people that don't know about d-mannose? I normally take it like once every day or just when I'm feeling a bit under the weather. So, or before intimacy, I'll just take 1 scoop and then go to the bathroom 45 minutes after. And that's like literally saved my life. So I think, a combination of like remembering what it's like to go through this and then realizing that I haven't actually helped anyone and I have all this information and knowledge and research in my head. And also, I had a little bit of time to think, like, I can sell fashion for the rest of my life if I want to, but maybe I should do another platform where it connects people and I can kind of talk about my story, because I think I've been too scared to talk about it in the past. Like, or even writing the website made me think I had a UTI.
It is. It gets kind of in your head and you're like, oh my God. Even when I do these episodes, I'm like, I start thinking about my symptoms and I'm like, wow, you know, I haven't really felt any burning in a while. And then I'm like, what if I wake up with, you know, symptoms tomorrow because I've been talking about it, you know, and it just gets in your head.
It's in your head sometimes a little bit. I know. And like, funny enough, when I realized, because I was making my website and then I was realizing that I needed a bit of help because I'm not a website designer, and it's changed a lot since I last tried to make one. So I was just like, oh my gosh, I need help. So I asked one of my girlfriends, who was amazing and super fast. And I was like, we've got one more week of lockdown. I need to get this out. Like, I need your help. And then she was like, I don't know. I said, where are you right now? And she goes, oh, I'm at the doctor's actually. I'll call you back. And then later on I called her and I was like, oh, are you sick? Are you okay? And like, she was literally like, oh, I think I've got a really bad UTI. And I was like, oh, it's a sign. You're meant to help me with the website.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. I know. So it's actually like just more common than you think, and people don't talk about it. There is a stigma. And like, so basically I thought I'll start this website. And first and foremost, it was meant to be a platform for people to, I'm not sure if connect is the right word. Like, it is for support, but it's also like the small people that have helped me along the way on my journey. Like, I've gone to a few amazing remedial massage people. Even my hairdresser, I found the most relaxing Japanese like salon that like massage you and give you green tea, and they have like the most comfortable chairs. And
wow.
Yeah. So, and they drink this, I don't know if it's rice tea or something, but I don't know. But yeah, like even I went to this acupuncture place that was like pretty affordable because they're like, I don't know, they're just affordable, but you can go like multiple times. And just all these small things kind of contributed to my overall health. Like, I did a little bit of Reiki and like stuff that I wouldn't normally do. And I'm always like, oh, that's like, I'm not sure if it's worth the money sometimes, but over time, like if you're open to it, that with the d-mannose, I managed to kind of get relief and like not have to be on antibiotics every month, and obviously changing my diet. So that's like I guess like I wanted to share that information with other people. That's why I kind of built the website, spent a little bit of money on it, but it was just so that it could sit there and maybe reach out or point someone in the right direction. And I originally wanted to like get all the scientific articles and do a little summary so it's easy to read, because I know like we're so busy now, we don't have time to like, there's lots of people that just don't have time, so they still want to go to the doctors and ask for their advice. But I honestly think there's a lot more. If you do your own personal research, you can find a lot of ideas that would work for you. And everyone's different, so there's no solution for everybody. It's kind of like you've got to work it out and keep persevering. So the website was meant to have like that aspect of helping people and support and pointing them in the right direction. But also, I guess I was inspired by one of my good friends who's also in the fashion industry, and I just am always telling her to go to the doctor and pee in the cup. It's like I'm a broken record. I'm like, please just go. And the funniest thing she said to me a week ago, oh, should I just buy a microscope, or should I just send my urine to California to get, the DNA, what's that, Gen X test or something?
Oh, yeah, microgen. I don't even know. What, I don't know. Something like that. Microgen DX. There we go.
Yeah, that's it. So she was like, I was like, I don't know, because if they send you your sample over there and send it back, and then I was like, and what are they going to tell you? You've got all these pathogens, but you don't know which one's good fighting the bad ones, or which ones do kill. Like, we just found out the bladder's not sterile. Like, there's heaps of like new information. So I just said, like, keep researching and doing what you're doing, but I kept saying, can you just go to the doctors and pee in the cup first? Even though it's not that accurate, it's still like free. So you might as well use what we've got. Just because we're in lockdown, we can't fly to London or anything like that to see certain doctors.
Right. Yeah.
And then so both of us have been trying dandelion tea, corn silk tea. She's Korean, so she already knows about corn silk tea. And like, I basically take d-mannose every day, and I was getting it from my urologist. And then I thought I should, just mention it to a few people, because it's super common. There's a lot of really, really good quality, like pure d-mannose in the States. And I guess like shipping it to Australia was a little bit expensive, and like trying to get through customs and stuff like that. So I actually did find a company that would work with me, which was amazing, for the d-mannose. But even so, there's quite a few in Queensland, like scientific labs that have d-mannose. So it is available, but it's only practitioner only. So you need to know someone that knows of it to recommend it. So I think I got really lucky there that it wasn't my urologist, it was my nutritionist that said to try d-mannose and Europlex, which is like a Chinese herb. But yeah, so all of these natural supplements I've kind of tried, and, the uva ursi is a bit of a weird one because it's also known as bearberry, and people say not to take that for more than like 5 or 6 days.
Right. Yeah.
Have you heard
I've
of that
heard
one?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've stayed away from it, but I have tried it in like teas and stuff. There's a couple different, things, I don't know, available in Australia, but over here there's like a tea that has it in there, and it seemed to help. But then I'm like, oh, I can only use it for 5 days.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen if I use it for 6?
Yeah. And I guess like it just depends like how willing you are to test everything out. Like it always makes me feel more comfortable when someone else has done it. So I'm like, oh, like even d-mannose, people in Australia are scared. They're like, oh no, my doctor said cranberry juice. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but if you're going to do that, like try, one that's unsweetened, or maybe something that's pure cranberry or raw cranberry, is not like, 25% fruit concentrate, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the d-mannose it's a little interesting because I think that's really what helped me kick whatever I had going on. I think it was a UTI that kind of got maybe embedded. I don't really know, but it went on for like 3 or 4 months. I was having the kidney pain. I had fever. I had chills. So I knew it. I really felt like it was a UTI. Everything was coming back negative though.
Yeah.
So I used the d-mannose for 3 months straight, and I felt like it really did kick it. Now, after that, I was left with a lot of inflammation, like constant painful urination. So it really did, it screwed some things up for me. But I wasn't feeling like I had a UTI anymore. So I think it really kicked it. The only thing is once it kind of went away, I noticed that it then was upsetting my stomach every day, and I was kind of like getting a lot of diarrhea, and I'm like, okay, no.
Oh, wow.
So now I just keep it. Yeah. So it was kind of weird. So I was like, well, maybe the E. coli like left my system or something, and now my body's like, okay, you don't need that anymore. But I do keep it on hand because if I have a day where even there's a lot of like burning, I take just a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's a really good like maintenance supplement, and it's really great when you truly do have a UTI because it is made from cranberries, isn't it? Like it's the sugar that's like extracted.
Yeah, exactly. It can be a range of fruits, even like I was just because I've reached out and asked a lot of companies, and it can be made from a combination, but it's still the way the formula, like the molecule. It's not sugar, but it's like similar to sugar.
Yeah. Even its name, it's like, it makes me think of like sucrose and fructose.
Yeah. And then I think
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, it's good though that you worked out like the right dosage for you, because I think that's why it's not common in Australia, is mainly because nobody knows the potency and dosage that's right for them, or like, right. A lot of these companies, big pharmaceutical companies, control like what gets across in Australia, what doesn't. And I'm sure it's like the FDA or TGA for us. So anyway, it is kind of, anyway, it's just interesting. Like you could be drinking cranberry juice for weeks and taking the symptom relief, but it might not help that. So I think d-mannose, now that it's proven to, flush E. coli out, and even for IC, like I didn't think it was going to work for me. I was quite skeptical. I was like, this is silly because I don't have any bacteria, but it definitely helped. Like I felt symptom relief in like 20 minutes, and I wasn't overdoing it. I think that's the problem, that I was overdoing it from stress with antibiotics, and that actually led to a lot of gut issues. So it's all connected. Like you kind of have to like repair your bladder lining. So I think that's why people talk about aloe vera extract. So that's like next on my list to get on the website.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Do you take that? Yeah.
Yes, and it does actually have d-mannose in it. It's a small amount, but yeah, I am a huge fan. I think that also after I did the 3 months of d-mannose, like every single day, like 2 times a day, I would take like 2 small scoops. After that helps, then I switched to the aloe vera, and now I just take that every day. I just take 1 capsule every day. They say to take 3, and I'm like, well, if I need 3 one day, I'll do it. But or if I need the d-mannose, I'll do it. But I think that that's really been my secret to being able to feel like I don't have IC, even though I know I have it because I can still feel it. But it's like 90% gone. Like I don't feel it.
Wow,
So
that's
I think that's
amazing.
been really helpful for me. I know it doesn't help everybody. So I always am just like, that's what helped me. Obviously your body's different and different things are gonna, you know, help you. I know some of us can tolerate like turmeric and others of us can't. And turmeric's something that, you know, I'll take every once in a while and it seems to be fine. But I know, you know, again, that can be bad. But anything that just reduces inflammation and can take down that burning sensation is key. And that's what I think, you know, if you can find products that do that, you know, that's amazing. Or anything that kind of like flushes out your system. So, you know, like I see you have the dandelion. I used to drink that like tea with a dandelion root in it, like religiously every time I would have a UTI, because I felt like it was like at least cleaning me out, you know? And so I think that, you know, that really helps. And I like that you have that. And then you have the uva ursi and oregano. That's something that's been newly, like I just found out about oregano oil. Like I used it as like an essential oil, like to diffuse. And I'm like, oh, it helps like, you know, to clean the air. But I didn't know about its benefits like internally. And I know like it can help with like gut issues like candida, like when you have a lot of antibiotics. And so it's pretty great. Like the combination that you have here is like chronic UTI / IC starter kit.
Yeah, exactly. I should do a little like happy bladder box.
Yes.
It's like d-mannose,
oregano
oregano oil, maybe dandelion tea, or you get a free tea anyway with everything. And I don't know about uva ursi. It's a little bit tricky because it is like completely approved in Australia, but then I read on a couple of health blogs that they're thinking of, well, the TGA are thinking of taking off uva ursi. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. That was an old article, but I have no idea. I'm still buying it. But yeah, so I think that is really important. Like once you're finding these supplements, to not overdo it, but also not to stop halfway, like start something 3 days and then just say, oh, it's working, but I'm scared it's going to make me like sick, or it's gonna, you know what I mean? Like it's like not overdoing it, but making sure you're finding the right dosage that works, and then like do it for like a couple of weeks to get a real test on how your body is responding. I don't know, but all of those things plus diet and obviously working out if you've got an infection or not is all important. I get most of I started finding like products overseas, like, but then there's a lot in Australia that's actually quite good, or at least Australian companies that source like, and even the teas here, like we have some from Tea Hut that they blend it for us, and they've got they're like certified organic, but then we've also got the oregano oil is like wild oregano oil, and I feel like it's a bit more potent, and it's in a little capsule, so it's good because I don't really like the taste, but I don't like the taste of anything. I think that's why I couldn't go and have Chinese herbs, because I just couldn't drink like it has to be in capsules or something for me. But d-mannose luckily has no flavor, so that's amazing. Like who would have thought?
And actually like it's great because if you add it to like juice or something, it's like you don't taste anything. Or even water. I used to say, it kind of gives the water like a little sweetness, but that's it. That's all I could ever notice with the d-mannose. So
it's really good. So all those natural herbs are really like good in moderation, but also just you've got to work out what works for you. So I actually only take uva ursi like before intimacy for me personally. Or like after, just really randomly, like not every time, just when I'm like feeling it. So I'm not doing like the 3 a day for morning, breakfast, lunch and dinner like the bottle says. I'm not doing that.
I think moderation for sure, because I take like 13 different things a day, but I don't take the recommended like 2 or 3 capsules. Like I just take 1, you know, and I switch them up. Like I'll do 1 every other day, or things like that. So it's definitely key of like, you know, figuring out what works and what doesn't. I'm curious though, are your products available internationally? So if I were to order from the US, can I order from your site?
I think not just yet, because probably in the future, yes. But I think at the moment, like, because you guys have so much product, like we have a hard time getting a lot of things across the, like, it will get held in customs for like a couple of months. Most of us Australians have to order off like iHerb and Amazon. And I think that the fact that I've been able to source smaller companies that are here in Australia, I just thought I'd start with Australia, even though it's a much smaller market. And it is mostly because people didn't really know where to look. There's a lot of brands out there and we don't know the potency, and then a lot of people buying stuff overseas and then it gets stuck somewhere. So I think I've just started to focus on Australia just to start. But then, of course, like I'd love to, like my d-mannose is originally from Finland and it's like amazing quality. So I kind of feel like it'd be great to sell something. And yeah, like someone just messaged me yesterday saying, can you deliver to London or South Africa? And I was like, not yet, but like I will, like, because there's shipping for like the container as well. You want to make sure it gets there in one piece.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's so much. And with COVID, I think all the things have changed with customs and just being safe and all that. So, you'll get there. I do have a lot of listeners. That I look at my analytics for my podcast. I do have a lot of listeners from Australia. So definitely anyone that is listening to this that's in Australia, definitely go to UTIstings.com and you'll be able to see all of these great products and everything that you need to kickstart your, bladder or whatever you're dealing with that's related to UTIs or IC. Lots of great products on here. And I love your website, by the way. It looks amazing. It's like, I love all the different colors of pinks and stuff. So definitely everyone that's from Australia, check it out.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it is really good. Amazing. Like it's just kind of getting my not brand, but website out there. Cause I think first of all, like, like a few people have asked me like, oh, have you got heaps of orders? How's it all going? Because you've worked so hard on it. I'm like, well, actually, like my success for me is not really, it's not actually to make money. Like I work full time in fashion. It's just kind of, I just actually wanted people to be able to find me if they're looking and reach me if they needed advice and like obviously reach out to me, if they had any questions. Like, sometimes it's just about sharing your experience and letting people know that, other people have been in the same boat and understand like the frustrations of not having good testing methods or not having the right answers right then and there. But yeah, it's funny. Like, I think like my partner's just so proud of me. He's like, I'm so proud of you for doing a little side project. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice when you find something you're actually passionate about and products that you really believe in and trust. And it's just, yeah, it's nice that I could probably share that. So I think in terms of, helping people or like my mission, like that's probably the first thing. And then the second thing is probably like letting people know that these products are like well and truly out on the market in every other country. Yeah. And so you don't need to be scared, and it's 100% natural. So like if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. You can try something else, but at least you're trying something.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. I loved learning about your company and hearing your story. I think a lot of my listeners can relate, especially given your timeline and the fact that you've dealt with this for a decade. I know this will be extremely helpful. And it's also just really inspiring to hear your story and hear about your success with your company. It definitely makes something for all of us to connect with and go, okay, cool. Like she was able to do that and she's been suffering for 10 years. I'm going to go follow my passions and go follow my dreams and start a company or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, it's definitely possible. And like, you have to have like positive, I know everyone's sick of hearing the word mindset over lockdown, but it is like a lot to do with mindset. And you need to almost like tell your brain like that you deserve to heal, your body can heal, and like you deserve to have a normal life. Like it's kind of, there's so much mental strength behind not just starting a business, but like your health, putting it first. And also if you're like suffering from chronic pain and you're freaking out and panicking like I have been over like when I have flares, like a lot of the time, like if you can manage a little bit more of your pain, and I think that's like why people are introducing like CBD oil or like medicinal cannabis, is because they're trying to help you deal with pain, because once you can like help the flare to subside, then that's when the body can heal. It's like impossible to heal when you're like shoving heaps of medications and all sorts of herbs all at the body all at once when it's in panic mode, like fight or flight response. It almost needs to like heal and soothe and calm itself. And then calming the nervous system is a lot with mental like health. And that's why I think if you have a slightly more holistic approach, it can be good, because once you're calm, then you have more opportunity for your body to heal, and like all the cells will talk to each other, and then you can heal with diet and supplements and, you know, everything else really.
Yeah, that's
you got to break the cycle.
Exactly. Well said. And I'm always for, you know, trying alternative if the traditional ways aren't working, see what else is out there. So I think what you're doing is incredible. And again, I really appreciate your time. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And I also want to thank our audience for taking the time to listen to the Bladder Battle podcast special series, Flarey Tales. Make sure to subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or leave a rating or review on Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you get them at. And stay tuned for the next episode right here on the Bladder Battle podcast.